Hi, my name is Clark Maxey, and this is my 5-minute presentation on the book that I read for my Social and Behavioral Foundations of Business winter session class that I took. The book that I read was Super Freakonomics by Stephen D. Levitt and Stephen J. Dunbar. This book is a sequel to their first book that was just called Freakonomics, and it challenges the way that we think about economics in our world today. It takes a fun and unique approach to help understand some of the behavioral economic trends in our world. It focuses a lot on economic decisions humans make and the consequences of those decisions. So the first chapter that the book goes into is called How Street Prostitutes Are Like Department Store Santas. So it may seem kind of confusing, but as you read the chapter, it makes a little bit more sense. Basically, what they're saying is that prostitutes and Santas are only needed or are in a higher demand in certain times. For example, prostitutes have a higher demand and have increased wages and during the time of family reunions. This is just like Santa Claus and the fact that he has increased time and increased demand during the holiday season. So even though prostitution is illegal and Santa Claus is legal, they share that bond in the fact that they're both seasonal. The chapter then goes into talk about pimps. Pimps offer prostitute security in exchange for a share of the day's wages, and they also market the prostitute as well. Pimps operate on a target market by identifying the customer and making sure that they get paid for each service that the prostitute performs. In essence, they're offering a valuable service even though it's illegal. The book talks about how women and men still are earning different salaries. Women traditionally earn less money than men. This goes to talk about this discrimination on how it impacts women's salaries because of the fact that they are women. They have certain choices that they make in their lives, such as children and taking time off for menstrual cycles, which cause them to have fewer hours. And even though women have a freedom of choice in their life, these penalties are affected in their career advancement. The next chapter is called Why Suicide Bombers Buy Life Insurance. This chapter seems a little confusing, but it actually made a lot of sense once you got deeper into it. Once you understand the gist of this chapter, it makes a little bit more sense. What they're saying is that as humans, we tend to always act or react in response to a reward or a penalty. So basically what they're saying is that people seldom do just for the sake of doing. One of the examples that the book used was the emergency room. And medical sector. Craig Feed was an emergency medicine specialist at the Washington Hospital Center, and his colleague Mark Smith was also working there at the emergency room with him as well. So basically what the two of them noticed was that emergency rooms were not equipped to handle large volumes of emergency patients. So their reaction was to provide a time-efficient information management system that would assist the doctors and nurses in emergency room settings. This was a reward because it allowed medical staff to see patients in a timely manner, obtain and store more information, have database cross-research and comparison of diseases and illness, and simply just make the ER run better. On the other hand, there was a penalty. The penalty is that hospitals now take on more patients, and those patients with minor complaints or who arrive early are essentially put on the back burner. So basically, people who come in and have a serious emergency going on, they're the ones who are reacted to or go into the ER first, while those who had appointments or those who have minor injuries are stuck in the waiting room. However, I believe, and the book believes, that the rewards outweigh the penalty. Another chapter in the book is called The Fix Is In, It's Simple and Cheap. This chapter talks about how people don't always react just for the sake of getting a reward. They react because it's the right thing to do. So, Dr. Semmelweis noticed in the 1800s that nearly 1 in 6 mothers and approximately 1 in 10 babies died after delivery from a disease or a fever called purple fever. He was really concerned by this, and he basically wanted to find out the gist of this. In the long term, what he found out was the reason why more babies and mothers were dying in the doctor's ward as opposed to the midwife's ward was because they were being exposed to a cadaverous bacteria. Basically, what was happening was that the doctors were performing autopsies downstairs, and they would get a call saying that there was a delivery or a woman about to have a baby, and they would simply go upstairs and deliver the baby without washing their hands. They were then contaminating the baby and the woman with this bacteria. Once he found this out, it was a simple reaction, which was to let the doctors know and to make them wash their hands in between autopsies and deliveries. The reward for this was that hundreds of lives were saved and doctors are now informed. And in this case, there was no penalty because it was simply for the good of all people. So in conclusion, what I gained from this book was that there are many logical human reactions to incentives and penalties. As shown in this book, humans rarely do something without expecting an outcome, rarely, whether it's positive or negative. After reading this book, I noticed that I seem to do this as well. I frequently act in hopes of reward and sometimes avoid things that may have a penalty. And what I got from this is that it's simply human nature, and that's the way all people react. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.